some form of sacrifice that you would want to see from the National Assembly, skipping some of those weekends and even some holidays or rest period?
Yes, certainly, exactly. That's what I'm saying. The next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, or 8 weeks maximum. That's what they really have in practical terms. They should be able to say, oh, Friday will now sit between from Monday to Friday. The committees should be able to sit weekends and get most of these things sorted out before. Because when they leave, from November now, when they can hardly, from November, watch the sittings. You will see that most times you will see just 40 persons sitting in the Senate or even 30 persons sitting in the House of Rep.
What if they have a quorum? They can forge ahead.
No, sure, they can. But what is the quality of the job they are going to do?
For instance, if they told us that they will pass the PIB this legislative year,
Yes.
if they tell us they will create additional states this legislative year, and those are things that are very, I mean, they've been considering some of those for a long time. So should we expect them to put their money where their mouth is with this one?
I will tell you something. If you want to, for instance, if you talk, in terms of amending Section 8 of the Constitution, very likely they can never do that. Because the Constitution says that for the purposes of quorum, you look at the provisions of the Constitution, which says that the Senate is represented by 3 persons from each state. So quorum is 109. That is in terms of voting. So you must get the 4/5 of the 109. So if not up to 80 persons are in the chambers, nothing you can do. The same thing in the House of Representatives. And look at, they said include whether there is vacancy or not. Not to talk of when they are not there. Whether there is vacancy or not. So it's not a question of quorum by virtue of maybe you have 80 persons sitting on the Senate. It's quorum for the purposes of 109.
But they can surprise us. Remember the last time they did that amendment, and everybody thought, look, this is going to be very difficult. They did it. They amended the laws.
Yeah. Anyway, remember those things were not subjected because what was done at the federal states was not really documented. When you say, for instance, that the Anambra legislature has approved a particular bill, what did they really do? Were they properly considered when they are doing it? All those things should be in their Hansard. This is what they did.
If they weren't, would they come to that conclusion that they've done it?
Sometimes they may. Because you should be able to list what you did. Was it put there? Was it read? You should be able to say it so as to know whether you actually did the approval. But that is, by the way, nobody has challenged it in the law courts. It's only when it's challenged that we start going into all this. But the point we are making at this stage is to say, this is our timetable. These are the things we are going to do. These are things we must achieve so as not to waste legislative years. If, for instance, they have been sitting on the PIB, wasting the time, and they cannot pass it within this legislative period, it means when they come back again, or when the National Assembly is reconvened next year, they will start afresh. And this is our taxpayers' money. So we expect them to list the bills that are the final stage and get them sorted out. Presidential assent shouldn't take so much time, And there was an issue that came up during our MBA conference. The issue of the working relationship between the legislature and the executive. For instance, the legislature passes a bill. The executive said, we will not give assent, we will not do anything, because it doesn't like some provisions of that bill. And the issue is, why is it that way? The legislature said that they normally give time for the public to make their input into the bill. And the question becomes, to what extent do you make it public? To what extent do you involve the executive to make their observations in the bill so that we have a faster system? So these are things that we think the legislature should put into place so that we don't have unnecessary. Sometimes it's just a minor thing that could just be looked at and amended.
But you don't sound very optimistic. I mean, first of all, you said the tone doesn't sound like, for you said they don't sound like they're serious, even though we're talking about security. You have listed the things that you want to see. Are you optimistic that some of those things will be sorted out before the end of this legislative year?
I have said I'm not optimistic that they will be sorted out. because there is no time. I'm not saying they are not serious. Please. What I am saying is that I expect them to give us a timetable. These are things we are going to do. And that by the grace of God, we are going to do it. And perhaps if we now see 80% success level, and we are okay.
Prioritize it now that we know that it is a race against time for them. Which would you want to see at least to be done before the time elapses?
Okay, number one is they have taken the issue of security the way I want them to take it. That one is fine. Now, we have some bills that are there. Bills on INEC, bills on the petroleum industry bill.
Should we still be touching INEC? How many months to the elections?
But they have it. Let them either leave it or continue. There should be a legislative action now before we get to January. Remember that most of the acts concerning INEC were all done sometimes 2 months to the elections, which is wrong. Just look at the acts. 2010 was towards the end. So why should we continue that way?
And they have a bill before the Senate,
Yes.
the National Assembly from INEC.
Yes,
Seeking to amend certain aspects of the Electoral Act.
Yes, to give them more powers, to look at electronic voting, to look at all sorts of things.
So they've got their hands full.
So they have.
While keeping tabs on their constituencies as well.
Yes, at the same time.
Because primaries for some states will start November.
Yes.
Then governors, I think, when December?
No, November, all of them November. The governors like PDP said their own will be 16th of November and 29th of November, governor and the presidency.
So they had to shuttle between
No, one is
attending
in
the
December.
primaries, campaigning for their constituencies,
Yes.
and then making those laws for the country. That's a job of work they've got on their hands.
Yes, it's really, so they should prioritize and say, these ones should go, these ones should not go.
Okay, then. So, well, there you have it. We've been speaking with Chukwuma Ezeala, a legal practitioner, on expectations from the National Assembly. All those bills that they've got before them, will this legislative year achieve a lot? Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back after the break. Don't go away.